Good morning and welcome to the Loretta Brown Show. Radio to open the heart, heal the soul, and ta-da, awaken the consciousness. Yay! I'm really glad that we're awakening the consciousness.
It's a lot to do sometimes.
I know, it's a lot. It's a lot.
But you can handle it, I know.
I can do it. 1 hour. We got it. We got this. We got this one. And since it's the year of the Chinese yin rooster, you notice I can't figure out whether to call it the chicken or the rooster, but it is the yin.
It could be both, I guess.
Rooster.
Officially.
The female rooster.
Rooster.
Never mind. It's going to get
me in trouble. It is
trouble.
2017, so it could probably be called that.
No matter what I do,
it's
going to get me in trouble. But, that's going to wake us up, too. So I hope that everybody's out there enjoying the celebrations for the Chinese New Year. And I talked about it last week on my radio show. And I was out and about this week, and there were some people who have never heard of the Chinese New Year. So go check it out because it's a lot of fun. It's 2 weeks of celebration, and that rooster energy, that awakening energy is here. And the other thing about the rooster that I really like is that it, at least for me, it becomes kind of an organized energy. It's like it's now time to get things done. And isn't that what the rooster's about, timing? So there's a little bit of a practicality about it. And maybe if you have been thinking about getting things done and having trouble really getting that organized, this energy will help you. So if you just tuned in, I'm Loretta Brown. I'm the owner of Reiki Oasis, located right here in the greater Seattle area. And I offer all kinds of stuff at Reiki. I hope you do take the time to check it out at ReikiOasis.com and take a look at the calendar. Lots of good stuff coming up. This coming Saturday, which is the day after tomorrow, is a Reiki 2 class. So if you have studied Reiki 1 and you're ready for Reiki 2, it's time to sign up. Go to schedule.ReikiOasis.com. You can sign up right there. If you have questions, you can always email me at info@ReikiOasis.com, and I will get back with you as soon as possible. But it's going to be a fun class. I think it's only about half full, so I do have room for people. Temple of the Divine Feminine is Saturday, February 18th. And Saturday, February 25th is a great workshop called Awaken to Love. That's right. There can never be too much love, and there should always be more, l'amour. That's kind of my little tricky phrase. Awaken to love. More awakening. So if you're looking for love in all the wrong places or in the right places, or you've got...
I was going to say, wait a minute. I mean, could be right or wrong. It doesn't... Come on now.
I know. I'm just saying if you're listening.
Give hope to some of our listeners.
Yeah, that's right. It's the month of love. It's February, so good time to be thinking about that. And if you want to tweak it a little bit, it is a great workshop. So that will be the last Saturday of February. Reiki Circle this month is Sunday, February 26th, and Reiki Master Apprentice class is Sunday, February 26th. Also.
Love, exciting and new. Come aboard. Hey, our guest, she will be joining you.
That's right. Yeah, we do have a lovely guest today. She is part of the
She's hot.
She is. That's right. She's hot. Yeah, that's right. In case she didn't know, she knows now.
Cool myself down.
That's right.
Cool myself down. A little champagne.
That's right.
Little CC champagne.
Little CC champagne.
See where I went with that?
I know. I love
pretty
that.
good,
It was a great segue.
Thank you.
Yeah, my guest today is my great friend, CC Champagne.
It's true.
It's true. It is true.
It's
I
very
love
true.
it.
Yeah.
I love it. And CC has been on my show before, but I like her a lot. And she wrote this great book called That Moment. Sometimes life takes you in unexpected directions. And I have my own little story about her book. But I just want to ask you, those of you listening, have you ever had something happen to you that at the moment you wondered about it or that disappointed you and later discovered it was a benefit? Because I sure have. And do you sometimes wonder what the blessing is behind life events or have trouble finding them, those blessings? A lot of my clients come in and they'll go, Loretta, why did such and such happen? I mean, honestly, right? So today, my friend CC Champagne is the best-selling author of That Moment, a work of short, nonfiction stories, all completely different, except for one common thread. There's a reason for everything. And this book has been well received by over 35,000 readers worldwide. Cece lives in Vancouver, BC. She grew up around thoroughbred horse racing. She was a competitive swimmer, a novice fencer. She's traveled extensively through her life. She became an author after leaving a successful career in the financial industry. And now she's on the Loretta Brown Show. You see how that goes. That's just the way it happens. She's, in my opinion, really associated with angels and all of those things that happen. And for those listeners, we are going to be asking for people to call in. You can call in if you've got a little short story about some sort of miraculous angelic intervention in your life, or you wonder if it was an angelic intervention. Also, if you'd like a live angel message from me, Loretta Brown. So the number at the radio station is 425-373-5527 or 1-888-298-5569. And now it's time for a little fun. Hi, Cece, come on.
Good morning, Loretta and Benny. You know what? It is going to be a great year for everyone because of the year of the rooster. It's getting things done. It's not procrastinating. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're all about, get things done, because things don't change unless you change.
That is so true. Very, very true. And we do get stuck in those patterns, don't we? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it's comfortable.
Well, it is. And I think we kind of settle down into it a little bit. I forgot to mention, and I'll just mention it right now, you know, we had this new moon in Aquarius a couple of days ago. And the new moon in Aquarius is sort of this, I'm not an astrologer, but it's sort of an unaspected moon, and which makes it really, really powerful. And it's asking us to really push forward. And, you know, all the planets are direct right now. We've had a lot of things happening. And so it is a time, I think, for us to really take a pause and say, what is happening in my life? Where am I going? And what can I do from there? And I think that sort of segues a little bit into your book.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your book. What led to writing it? You know, what was going on? Yeah.
Well, I was in, a busy life, like everybody else is. You have your career, you're focused on that, and family and friends, and but when you start to slow down and think about things that are happening and being more aware of what's going on around you, that's when you start to see, as I say, miraculous things happen. And that's what sort of got me thinking that is this, these things that keep happening, is this like a message that somebody's trying to tell me that I need to share? And the best thing out there throughout the ages is being able to tell a short story to somebody, a quick story, tell them something, get them thinking. Mm-hmm. And that's what these stories, that's why they were written that way. Because we don't always have time to sit down and read a whole novel unless we're on holidays or we've got time set aside for it. A short story is quick. We can have it with a coffee, and it can keep us thinking about it and maybe how it associates to ourselves as we go through the day. That's why I wrote the book that way.
Actually, I love the book. And, for those of you looking at my studio cam, I'm holding the book up for you. But it's a great book. It's called That Moment, and it is a bunch of, I would say each chapter is a story. And these stories are, in my opinion, they're sort of ponderings or verification or validation of angelic presence, of those things that happen. I sometimes call it synchronicity also, mm-hmm. where I always say, you can't make this stuff up.
No.
How do you happen to be in that moment at that time? Or how did that happen to work just like that? We can't make those things happen. And so it's the validation of our beautiful unseen helpers, the divine, God, all of that. And so wonderful. It's also a very inspiring little book. So I kind of recommend to the listeners that you check it out, That Moment by C.C. Champagne, which is just lovely. So when did you first have that moment?
As I said, these things have been happening to me throughout my life, but what really, when the light bulb went on, as you might say, is when I had, there was a robbery in progress at our condo, and what ended up happening was I just happened to go home that day, which I never used to go home at lunchtime, and it got interrupted. But that's in the book. I'm not going to go into it more. But what resulted from that was it was important because the people that were being robbed didn't have insurance, and so a notice went out in the building saying it's important that you have condo insurance. It's very important, even if you don't own or if you do own. Either way, you should have condo insurance on your possessions. And then what happened was, amid the flames, that is another story in the book, where there was an arson fire. And if people hadn't had the insurance that they were told about, they would have lost everything. So that's the first step into it. Then, of course, what happened in the fire, and that we can also talk about is that on your Facebook page you posted a couple of pictures.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. The pictures of the fire that are just they're very dramatic pictures. That's quite the fire.
Yeah, it was. There was a couple of juveniles that, for reasons that you'll find out in the book, decided that they were angry at a family and decided to take the wrong approach to it, and they set the cars on fire at a condo down the road where one of the parents was living, and but that building was made out of concrete. And 2 days later, and it's funny because I really focused in on that story in the newspaper, and understanding that it was, the reporter had said there was a popping noise of tires, which alerted the residents. And 2 nights later, there is this popping noise in our a lower area where our cars are parked, and as soon as I heard it, I told my friends that were over at the time, we were all watching a movie, to get their purses and get out. And I told them there's a fire, and they go, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Believe me, this is what it is," and we all got out, and luckily nobody was hurt. But one thing that really bothered me was the fact that when we all did get out, I was looking at the condo, and because it was wood framed, it went up, and within 7 minutes, it was engulfed.
Oh, my goodness.
And I stood there looking at my condo. I could see it, and I said a prayer and asked the angels and asked God. I said, "Please don't let my grandmother's paintings be burned." Because my grandmother's a fantastic artist, and I was so lucky to have her artwork in my home, and I just could not think of those beautiful pieces being gone because they're so personal. And as you can see, the flames are over the building. Everything is on fire, and one of the cars had exploded with such force, because I guess it had a lot of gasoline in it, that it blew a hole through the bottom, like to the floor of the building, of the first floor, the second floor, the third floor, through the storage area, which is off of at that time off of the kitchen area. And so that fed air into each condo, which is not good with a fire.
Oh, no.
So we've got that hole that's feeding air. We've got the fire all over the building. And I thought, there's no way that anything's going to be left. In the morning, I came back at 5 o'clock in the morning. I had to see what was left. And all that was left, really, looking like it had not been touched, was my condo.
Oh, that's amazing.
Everything in the condo, there was nothing burnt. It was melted.
Oh, for heaven's sakes.
But the paintings were fine. They had soot on them.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, being cleaned, there was nothing wrong with them. And this is what I mean. Like you're never alone.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone who thinks that they're alone, you're never alone. You have your angels around you. You have your guides, and God is always with you. Whether you believe it or not, it is, or a higher power, and that's what I call it: a higher power, angels, guides. Because we are not alone. We're guided into situations for reasons that at the time we may not be really understanding. We go through things that we may not understand why they happen.
Mm-hmm.
But in the end, we understand that there's a message in there. And everything, if you can hang on to any piece of positive in any situation that happens to you and use that to go on, then you've learned the lesson within this. Because this fire that happened, that devastated a lot of people, nobody was killed.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody was injured. Everybody made it out okay. So it was just belongings that were devastated. But I do want to say one thing about this, and that's about anybody who takes sleeping pills because they have a problem sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
Never take a sleeping pill, please, unless you have somebody else with you is in the same home as you, because there was a woman who took some sleeping pills because she was having problems sleeping, and she was woken up the next morning with 4 firemen in her condo saying, "Everybody's gone. What are you doing here?" And she said, "I didn't know anything was happening."
Oh.
She slept through the whole thing.
Oh, my goodness.
Luckily, she was on a completely opposite side of a building, down the road a bit, which wasn't touched.
Right.
And so, luckily, nothing happened to her. But that is something that I tell people because we heard about that. And if that is the only message in there, then, maybe that saves somebody.
Yeah.
And that's how I look at it, that there's always a message within every situation that happens.
I think that's a wonderful story. That's a what I call an intervention, an angelic intervention, and also an answer to your prayer.
Yes.
To make sure that your grandmother's paintings were fine. And it sounds to me like that the higher power did more than just save those paintings. So.
Yes.
Yeah, and I encourage people listening, do go to the Facebook page for the Loretta Brown Show, because I posted a couple of Cece's pictures there, and they're amazing. It was quite the blazing fire. Just an amazing story. Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you're okay and that everything came through the fire okay. And, of course, after a fire is a little bit devastating because there's the rebuilding and the cleanup and all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and anything you survive, is a great thing. And that's the way I look at it. So, everybody was able to go on, and that is the main thing. And it is things that we go through in life. A lot of the time they're not easy, but there's a reason why we go through them. Mm-hmm. And we just have to figure out why.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have to tell you, sometimes that is probably the biggest question. Why did we go through that, or why did that happen? One thing I know, and I know you know this too, when we go through something that's of I'm going to say of a large nature or challenging nature, that no matter what happens, by the time we get to the other end of it, we're not the same.
Absolutely.
We've become stronger, or we've been enriched, or there's something that has happened, even with heartache or things like that. At the end of it, if we can just kind of take a deep breath and say, wow, look where I'm at, and I've made it through that, and I'm different now. Deeper, richer, more compassionate. And
absolutely,
maybe even more connected to God and higher power,
I do agree with that. You have to look at the positive and know that there is a message within every situation that happens to build us, to strengthen us, to give us more knowledge. And also, knowledge is no good unless you share it.
Mm-hmm.
And when we learn something, we should tell people. Because every person you tell, there's a reason for that. Because maybe they'll tell one person, and that's the person it'll help.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to look at it like that. I don't tell people, oh, I was in a fire, and oh, no. I say, you know what, okay, we got through it, and I have to look at it like that. Because if I look at the negative, it just brings you down.
Mm-hmm.
I look at the positive. We all survived. We got through it. Yes, it's devastating, but we got through it. Now, where's the message?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I look at. I go for what the message is. And it's just, just to come back to what you were saying is that this is the month of love.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many people that maybe don't have somebody in their life, but the best thing to do to have love come to you is to create love for others,
mm-hmm.
to give love out. You give love out, you get love back.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, and that's what I tell my friends sometimes is that, around this time, go out and do things for others, help others, share yourself with others in a positive way, and it'll come back to you. Not all the time is love a relationship. Love is also the feeling of friendship and caring of others.
Oh, I love that. I like that a lot. I've found that, in my own life, when I'm feeling a little bit down or I'm feeling stressed or worried about whatever, that if I just go and do something for someone else, like you say, spread the love around or do something kind,
Mm-hmm.
or even sometimes it's just opening the door for somebody at the grocery store,
Yes.
Smiling at someone, you never know what's going on over there, but that's what lifts me up.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be huge things. It can be something as simple as that. You taking the time to look at somebody and saying, no problem, as you open the door for them.
Mm-hmm.
Just that, you don't know what that does to somebody else. You don't know what they're going through. But you've just given out yourself, your smile, your happiness to somebody else. And that is maybe what they needed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't know, I kind of look at life like a series of small events, little moments.
Yes.
And, it's sometimes I get this impression in the middle of some small thing that what just happened was important. And
yes.
It is that chance greeting or whatever it is. I was a few years ago, my mother passed a couple years back. And
yes.
Before she passed, I had a wonderful opportunity to go up and play Dad's guitar for her and sing with her. And it was something that I did when I grew up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, I thought, well, she's getting close to the end. I wonder what I could do. And so that's what I did. And she wanted to sing, You Are My Sunshine, which that'll just make me cry right there, right?
Aww.
And it was so sweet. And we sang and sang for like 2 hours. And I thought to myself, if I would have come to Earth just for one thing, I would have done it for that. And I think life is like that, where we have
special
these
moments like that, yes.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah, that's lovely.
Yeah, rich, full moments where we're like really just heartfelt moments, I think it is. some sort of a connection.
You when you think about those small moments, they add up to a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's the thing. Might be small, but you add them up, and all of a sudden you're realizing, I'm grateful for all the things that are going on in my life. It is actually a good life.
It is a good life. That's right. So we're going to take a little station break. For those of you listening, we do have the lines open if you want to call in with a question or want a live angel reading from myself, and Cece can throw in on that too. The number here is 425-373-5527 or 1-888-298-5569. This is Loretta Brown. I've got to clear my throat. And my guest is Cece Champagne, author of That Moment. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Loretta Brown Show. And my guest today is Cece Champagne, author of That Moment. Sometimes life takes you in unexpected directions. Sometimes they're unplanned. That's right. And sometimes you just end up at the right place at the right time. So if you've got a little angel miracle story you want to share with us quickly on the air, please give us a call at 425-373-5527 or 1-888-298-5569. And during the break, Cece and I were talking about, just briefly, I want to mention on the air, Cece's a lovely grandmother who recently passed at the age of 103. And I just am mentioning her for you, Cece, just to send little blessings and thanks out to her, because we never know how people are going to affect our lives. And sometimes we're just so blessed to have the people in our life.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. I agree, and thank you so much for that.
Yeah, just felt like I wanted to mention her. So let me ask you, what type of people are reading your book, That Moment?
And this is the great thing about That Moment, is that there is something for everyone. There's people that around the world that are senior citizens. There's people that are 16 as 17 years old. There's people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. Everyone. And men and women. Yeah, and that's what's great, is that it'll make you laugh. This book, it will make you think. It'll make you have tears. It just does everything for you. There's every story in here. There's always something that the reader will say, you know what, that reminds me of something in my own life. And it makes them then think. And that's why it's so loved by both men and women of all ages, which I'm grateful for. I have such a vast variety of readers from around the world that love this. So there's no real section of people that only they read it. It's everyone.
Well, you know what I love is... you quite often have these pictures. You have a great picture of someone holding it with the red high heels. That's my favorite picture. I posted that because I love it so much. It's a little high heel thing, right? Yeah. And the other thing is that your book travels all over the place, and people take pictures of it all over the place. And it reminds me of the gnome in the movie Amelie. You know, she's got the gnome with Paris in the backdrop, or the Taj Mahal or something. And I wanted to share with the listeners, I have a little story about Cece's book, which to me is so appropriate, because I associate this book with angels, right? I think angels take it around. And I have a copy of Cece's book that's got Cece's, she signed it, right, on the inside, right? And she goes, "For Loretta," right? So I know it's my book. And I had it sitting in my waiting room at Reiki Oasis and went out, and it just had disappeared. And okay, well, so maybe someone said, "Hey, that's a great little book. I'll just borrow that," right? But honestly, Cece, I think 3 months went by. It might have even been longer, but it was at least 3 months. And I kept thinking about the book every now and then. And I think I even mentioned to you that it disappeared.
Yes.
And then I went out one day and it was just sitting on the counter. It was just sitting there.
Yeah.
And nobody's there. And I went, well, I guess it's come back home.
I just think that is the most fabulous story.
Uh-huh.
Your copy of the book took a ride.
It did.
Apparently somebody was, I would think, reading the start of the book, and they get hooked. And that's what happens with this book. You get hooked, and you can't put it down, and they took it.
Mm-hmm.
And as you were saying, I hope that it helped whoever had it for a period of time.
I do too. And I hope that other people read it, which is kind of my suspicion. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah, for being gone that long, because a lot of people say that they pick it up, pick the book up, they order it, and they start to read it, and they can't put it down. They read it in one day.
Mm-hmm.
Or they read it in over a weekend. So for it to be gone for 3 months, you're right. You know, I think it's gone out there and hopefully helped a lot of people. But I love the fact that it just showed up on your counter.
Yeah, it was like, I got to go back home. Time to go back.
I got to go back home, yeah. It's like the little gnome, and it's too bad that there wasn't a camera attached to that book.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I would love that. Yeah, just to, the little cam of the book going places.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you, how did you get all these true stories in that moment?
Well, it started off with me mentioning things to people that I worked with, that things that had happened to myself or to close friends of mine. And as soon as you start to speak about interesting things that happen, people come up with their own.
Mm-hmm.
They always try to engage and say, this happened to a friend of mine, or this happened to me. And they start to, and so that's how I started to get more stories. But when I decided to write the book, of course, I wanted to make sure that all the facts were there. So I went back to these people and I said, who else was involved with this? And whether they really knew that person or not, I went and I got their side of the story.
Mm-hmm.
So all the stories are verified. Because a story isn't a story if it's just one-sided.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be able to make sure that the information is correct if you're going to say that it's a true story.
Mm-hmm.
I don't just take people's word for it. It has to be verified. And funny enough, when I was given the story of Two Men's Angels, the police officer that was involved with it, he gave who the other gentleman was in the story. And when I went to verify the story with him, then he gave me also the story of of Australia. So it's funny how that worked. That when you start talking to people, then they bring it out. And a lot of the time, there's people, unless you know the people around you maybe believe the same as you or think the same or are open-minded. Not everybody has to believe, but being open-minded and being respectful of other people's beliefs is important. So if you feel confident in saying something that maybe is not mainstream, then others may say, well, you know what, that's okay, I can say this, and they won't judge me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing. And people opened up. They really opened up. And especially when you have a man opening up.
Mm-hmm. Because
usually men don't say things like that, at least not the ones that I've known in my life aren't really, they don't go around and say, you know what, I think there was an angel with me. That usually doesn't happen. So it's interesting what prompted people to tell me these stories, and I'm just grateful that I was privy to all these beautiful stories. And they're adventurous, they're intriguing, they're miraculous, and there's something in it for everybody. And the thing that's really lovely about it is that you'll never be bored because no two stories are the same.
Mm-hmm.
They are so off the grid for being the same at all, except for that common thread.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I like, because if you go to a restaurant for the same meal every time, you get bored. If you go to a buffet, it's different. Everything's different. And that's what makes it interesting.
You know, I like what you said, and I've observed this myself, that many times people are a little bit reluctant to talk about some sort of unexplained phenomenon, you know, whether was it an angel, you know, was it some sort of paranormal, you know, what happened, some miraculous thing.
Yeah.
And until they feel, like you say, that this is a safe place where they can literally say it. Mm-hmm. And I've always kind of wondered about that. I mean, for myself, you know, I've always seen angels and been in contact with that realm, but there was a period in my life where I felt like I couldn't tell people because they're either not going to believe me or they're going to think I'm crazy or just wacky, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I had an experience a few years back where a gal came to me and wanted me to work on her father, you know, to do Reiki on her father. And
Yeah.
she wasn't sure what he would think about it because people don't really understand, you know, about Reiki. It's just, you know, I tell people sometimes it's just energy medicine, sort of like acupuncture without the needles, only different, right?
Yeah.
And so she brought him to see me and wanted to know if he wanted her to stay, and he said no. And she went out, and as soon as the door closed, we sat there for a little bit, and he looked at me kind of strangely, and he said, I just want to tell you that I've been seeing an angel.
Wow.
And I went, oh, okay. And so we had a really interesting talk about that, and he shared stories with me about how this angel had been helping with certain things in the family, and
Mm-hmm.
he was aware of that. And so it was a great thing, and I asked him, I said, have you ever told anybody about this? And he said no. And I suggested he might want to talk to his daughter about it, that, you know, that might be okay. So
Exactly, that might be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, and here he's close. It's his daughter, and yet he never felt
mm-hmm.
that he could say it openly.
Yeah.
He was worried about, you know, what will they think? And that's the thing. We have to stop worrying so much about what other people think and kindly share what we feel and be real.
Mm-hmm.
People have to start being real. And if that's what you want to share, then share it in a kind way. And then, you know, don't worry about what other people say. And a lot of the time, people will say, oh, that's really interesting. And they might turn around and they might go, oh, boy.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter. Does that affect you? No. You know, what it is that if you have an experience that you don't know what to call it, well, then figure out what you want to call it, whether it's angels, whether it's guides, it's, you know, it's a higher power,
mm-hmm.
whatever
mm-hmm.
you want to call it. Don't get hung up on the words, and other people shouldn't get hung up on the labels of it. It's just that you experience something.
I really
explain.
agree with that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you experienced something, and for me also, because I tell people that too, like, don't get hung up on calling it something, but when you have a personal experience of it, to me, that's the validation, because no one can take that away from you. You experienced it. And
absolutely.
You know,
Yeah.
people can try to minimize it or explain it away, but sometimes you just can't. Yeah, for the listeners, I want to let you know there is still time. Oh, there are a few minutes. If you want to call in, if you've got a question for CeCe Champagne, author of That Moment, or if you'd like a live psychic or angel reading from me, there's still time to call in 425-373-5527 or 1-888-298-5569. And Cece, I want to ask you, have you ever felt you were in the presence of a higher power or angels?
Well, I do believe that everyone has angels around them, and a higher power is always with you. Mm-hmm. But I can honestly say that the story of a presence in Mexico was something that was very overwhelming, because I never thought that I would hear a presence.
Yes.
And that's the one thing that changed things up, is that when somebody was in trouble, health-wise, I heard a voice tell me he's an epileptic. Mm-hmm. I had no idea what epilepsy looked like, what happened. I thought somebody fell. That's all I thought. Somebody tripped or fell, because I wasn't paying attention to them.
Right.
Because it was on the street. So there was no thought in my mind, I wonder if they have a medical condition, because he was young. He was in his early 20s. And so for that voice to say that in my head, and it was a masculine voice, say he has epilepsy. Mm-hmm. Then I was able, and the people I was with was able to help him, and in the end, we found a tag on him that said that. Mm-hmm. So that, to me, is a presence of an angel or a higher power that gives you a message that's in your head, and it pops into your head, and anything that is a good message that can help others, that usually is a message from a higher power that's in a positive.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that the higher powers, the angels, God, they work in really mysterious ways. I have so many stories from my own life of what I call direct intervention. I'll share one really, really quick, because, while you were talking, I went, wow, I have a lot of those that happen. Either where a voice pops in or there's just something really unexplained. And it's been years ago, I was driving home late at night from visiting a friend, and it was dark. There weren't that many people on the road, and I pulled up to a stoplight, and I was driving at that time a little Mazda Miata with a convertible top that was up, but it's one of those cloth tops, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm just sitting there, and all of a sudden, for no apparent reason, I felt a little bit of alarm, and it was a feeling. It wasn't like overwhelming, and I literally heard in my head to lock the door, and kind of everything happened at once, and it was almost like I was watching my hand reach across myself and lock my door, just as I realized that there was someone on the outside that was trying to open the car door. And it was a man. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he was yelling some really bad things at me and obviously wanted to do me harm. And it was like I knew. And then I was racing through the intersection, like I just went through the red light. There was no one there, and got away. And the whole thing probably lasted 30 seconds. Mm-hmm. And everything happened at once, and it was so clear that was my angels, that was my divine protection. Yeah. And just was amazing. So,
and that's the thing. When you get a feeling, we have these feelings that we get, and if it's prompting you, and if it's making you nervous, or it's making you feel that you have to do something, then you know what? There's a reason for it. Mm-hmm. It's probably there to protect you, or to protect the others. And you should listen to it. Your body will always tell you, your soul will always tell you, if you're doing something wrong, you know it. Because you get that feeling within you.
I I actually agree with that so much. When I'm doing something right, for me, it's almost like it clicks into place. And
Yeah.
if it isn't quite right, it's just not quite right.
No.
And for me, that's kind of a direction for me also when I'm helping to give guidance to others. I can tell when what I'm telling them is not quite right, like I'm trying to interpret, because the other side doesn't actually speak English, even though we hear it that way because I speak English, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But there is that internal guidance system that really, really works for us. So, do we have time for?
We do.
Okay.
Let's take a couple calls before we end the show for today. And Bill from Seattle has joined us. Hello, Bill. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you. And I just have some health questions, health related. How am I doing physically and mentally and all of that?
That's a broad question, Bill. Hang on just a second. Let's check into that. Cece, do you have any comments while I kind of tune in here? Yeah.
Just wanted to say that, if I ever have somebody ask me, do you get a feeling of how I'm doing? I'm not like you, Loretta, but the feeling I always say is, make sure that you think positive and think yourself feeling better, and always make sure that you are taking care of yourself and smiling at yourself so that you promote feeling better.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. And what I got is that a word of encouragement to you. And that's really what your guides are saying, to encourage you and lift you up and say you're going in the right direction. So to kind of keep doing all of the good things that you can do. So it kind of goes along with what Cece said there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that general health, when we talk about general health, we're talking about everything, because everything is related to everything. So how you're thinking, what you're eating, are you moving, how's your relationships, how's your life? You see, it's a kind of a flow question. And if we take a look at that, we could be more specific about where there might be blocks in that. But I think generally that if you can help keep yourself in a good position of positivity and breathing deep into the body and just letting go a little bit, don't worry is what they're saying. So I hope that helps you.
Yes, it does. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And blessings to you. Thanks for calling in. We were talking about, the presence of the higher power and its purpose in our life, or how it is. And I want to ask you, when we start to really pay attention to these moments around us where higher powers come in, how does living life with this added level of awareness change our lives?
I think it enriches you. Mm-hmm. I think it completely enriches your spirit, your soul, everything about you. I think it gives you a feeling of gratitude and pleasure within yourself. When you start, it's almost like you say, are these things that just happening to me? Am I that lucky?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's just a great feeling when you know that you are being able to witness these things.
Mm-hmm.
And you see these things, and then you experience these things. And everybody has them going on in their life. It's just whether or not they're aware of it. And that's the thing. When you become aware of what is going on around you, that's when it starts to really open up for you. Mm-hmm. And it happens to all of us. It's just whether we're aware of it. It's just really taking a look at what's going on around you.
I think it does. It raises our awareness, and I think it makes us more present. You know, to pay attention to what is happening in this moment rather than worrying about the past and worrying about the future. What is happening in this moment, and can we be present, and can we have a little bit of trust that actually everything is fine in the world in its own way?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Now,
and I do recommend that everybody reads this book, you won't be disappointed. It's on Amazon.com. It's also on my website, which I'm sure is showing on your screen. Mm-hmm. And on Facebook, it's got the links there. It also comes in an ebook form, but the ebook doesn't have the illustrations. I was lucky enough to have my grandmother draw the illustrations for this book. It was the last illustration she ever did. Mm. And I was lucky enough to have them in this book. She just did it, as to her, it was a little bit of doodling. Because she was a fabulous artist, and so that's her little sketches. But they're beautiful, and they go really well with the stories, but they're not online. Mm-hmm. But anybody, I do recommend that this is a great gift idea for anybody who you think needs it, and also great for yourself.
Sounds
and the
wonderful.
one thing is that people, they have found that when they lend out this book, that they don't always get it back. People don't want to give it back.
Unlike mine, which had to come home.
Came back 3 months later, but yes, it did come back, and that's a story that is just worth telling again and again. It's too funny.
It is. I love it. Well, my guest today has been Cece Champagne, author of That Moment, and we don't have time to talk about it, but Cece also has another new book out. What's it called? Cherry Warriors? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was asked to donate one of my stories from that moment and put it in with a group of 18 authors from around the world. Mm. And we share our stories in there in Cherry Warriors, and it is all of the money that is from that book goes to the Cherry Malformation Clinic, which there's one in the Mayo Clinic, and there's one in, I think, Birmingham, England. And it's to bring more awareness and also a cure, possibly, to Cherry malformation.
Wow, that is fantastic. So I want to thank you for being on my show today, Cece, and for the listeners, please get That Moment by Cece Champagne. This is Loretta Brown. Enjoy the Chinese New Year, the year of the yin rooster, the new moon, and please be kind to each other. That's what it's all about. More l'amour. Talk to you next time.